Great. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Lamia Kamal Shawi, and I am the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities at the OECD. This is the department which hosts the Secretariat of the Inclusive Growth Initiatives. I'm really delighted to open the OECD Champion Mayors Week with this first Mayors panel as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the OECD Champion Mayors for Inclusive Growth Initiative. The objective of these panels is for city leaders from around the world to share ideas and lessons learned to deliver inclusive growth in their action to deal with the impact of the pandemic and prepare for the recovery. Today's discussion will be devoted to the economic impact of the pandemic and the need to ensure an inclusive local economic recovery. We will explore how local governments are supporting businesses and workers, especially in those key industries that have been hit the hardest, how they have mitigated job losses, and what cities can do in the more medium, longer term to adapt to new changes and make sure recovery strategy do not go hand in hand with further inequalities. We know that the COVID-19 crisis is having an economic impact that is enormous, considerably higher than the global financial crisis of 2008, 2009. And since the beginning of the pandemic, the OECD has been keeping tabs on the policy actions in response to the pandemic in hundreds of cities around the world, in large part through the coalition of champion mayors. And we have produced a policy note that tracks the type of economic measures cities have taken as a response to the COVID-19 crisis, which include also some policy recommendation for an effective recovery. And we have published several updates of this note as cities' recovery strategy actually have shifted and developed, and they are adapting to the ongoing reality. And the colleagues will put in the chat the link to the note if you are interested to have more information. Our work has shown that the economic impact on city has been quite asymmetric and depends, of course, heavily on the economic specialization of the different cities. And we noted that cities that have been able, that have been in a better position to deal with the economic and social challenges are also those that were ready to embrace change, that were more agile, more innovative and creative in their responses. Moreover, a closer dialogue with national and regional levels of government was really crucial for many of these cities to effectively respond to the early stage of the pandemic, particularly to manage healthcare capacity, and remains key as countries are now rolling out their ambitious recovery packages. We saw many interesting policy responses from cities. For instance, some cities like Victoria, and today we have the mayor with us, provided social safety nets, tax breaks and loans while boosting service delivery. So they were really helping people. Other cities like Bilbao, also present today, provided support to their local SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, granting commercial rent as was done in Denver, and fiscal exemption has also emerged as one of the key drivers of successful responses from cities to help small business owners overcome difficult circumstances. And cities like Reykjavik in Iceland that defer fees for company or increase flexibility in collection of fees and payment deadline for household and businesses really help them overcome financial difficulties and lay the foundation for a strong and inclusive recovery. These are just, some powerful examples of the wide range of action taken by local government to mitigate the impact of the crisis. But now, as we are all preparing for recovery, the COVID-19 crisis presents cities and countries with the opportunity for a great reset toward greener, resilient, healthier, inclusive, and sustainable cities. And the biggest opportunity emerging from cities from this pandemic is not, I would not say everybody's using build back better. I'm always using build forward better. We don't need to go back to what used to prevail in the past. On the contrary, we need to take the opportunity to build forward better. This means planning investment and focusing efforts on an inclusive recovery, for instance, by ensuring that vulnerable groups, migrant, low-wage workers, women, minority groups benefit from targeted employment and skill-building programs that are adaptable, relevant, flexible, and responsive to the new needs of local labor markets and the new forms of works. We have been hearing a lot about, the question of teleworking. All these trends, which were actually already there before the pandemic, have accelerated during lockdown, and probably many of them are here to stay with us. So building forward betters means addressing this type of things, this type of question, but also to take other action in favor of a green recovery, more climate resilient infrastructure, increasing public spaces, vehicle-free streets, protecting bike lane infrastructure, refurbishing buildings and zoning regulation to promote more mixed use. We know already that these policies are good for the environment, but when you implement them at the local level, you can also see that they are also good for the economy and good for the society. Of course, all this public action cannot be done through only the public sector alone. Cities will need to work even more with the local stakeholder, with the private sector, with the social organization. And to help us explore all of these questions, we are really delighted to have with us today 4 champion mayors. Mayor Michael Hancock from Denver, United States, Mayor Dagur Eggertsson from Reykjavik in Iceland, Mayor Lisa Helps from Victoria in Canada, and we have Deputy Mayor Amaia Arregi from Bilbao, Spain, who will speak on behalf of Mayor Abortu due to a last-minute impediment. I'm also delighted to be joined to co-moderate with me this session by Emilia Saez, who is the Secretary General of one of our supporting institutions and also a long-standing partner to the OECD, United Cities and Local Government. She will be co-moderating this session with me. But before we begin, I want just to remind a few housekeeping points. First, the recording of this webinar will be available on the Champions Mayor webpage in a few days. You can, all participants here, use the chat function to contact our support team for any technical difficulty. We also invite you to use the Q&A function to share your thoughts and direct your question to mayors during the panel discussion. And also, please feel free to engage with us on Twitter using the handle at OECD_local and the hashtag Champion Mayors Week. We will show you these tags on the slide later on. Now we will move to our panel discussion. We have aligned a very good set of champion mayors. Each of them will have 4 minutes to intervene in this first round that I am going to moderate. And then I will give the floor to Emilia to moderate the second round. So when you see me, mayors, moving, and when you see me on the screen again, it's a sign that the 4 minutes are over. I'm going to be a little bit the nasty person that is going to make sure that we are tracking the time. So let me start now with our very first speaker, Mayor Michael Hancock of Denver, United States. Mayor Hancock public service began on Denver City Council when he served for 9 years, including 2 terms as City Council President. With an equity-focused approach, Mayor Hancock has prioritized investing in the city's children and youth and started record investment in affordable housing. And under his leadership, Denver has become known as a top US city for startups, especially for minority and women-owned businesses. Mayor Hancock, how has your continued support to small businesses and startups helped to mitigate the impact of the crisis on the local economy? Mayor, the floor is yours, and you have 4 minutes for your intervention.
Lamia, thank you so very much again for the invitation to be back with you and to talk about this important issue. As you have, I think, appropriately pointed out, across the globe, we were all impacted by this pandemic, and our efforts to strengthen to protect, number one, our cities was top of mind. And I will never forget going into that emergency operations center with a mission objective, if you will, to save our city. But I will tell you, in terms of strengthening and protecting our businesses and making sure that we were doing things in an equitable fashion, all this started way before we even had a vaccine, and we knew that recovery would be just around the corner. We started early on, really trying to look forward, as you point out very appropriately. And this will end. So how do we make sure that when we get to the end of this, that we have momentum and that we are looking forward and that we bring that momentum into the new era where hopefully we are better and more equitable going forward. So I created what is called the Economic Recovery and Relief Council, where over 300 business leaders and civic people and regular citizens came together to help us think through how we can get through the pandemic, save our city, but also how we could be looking forward to greater greener pastures going forward. They helped us think through the allocations of tens of millions of dollars in grants to our small businesses and our nonprofit organizations to help sustain them during the pandemic. They helped us think through how we might expand patios so that people could be distant and they could be outdoors and eating, even in the wintertime of Denver, and restaurants would have the ability to have patrons and survive the pandemic. They helped us think through how we might organize ourselves to make sure that people got tested regularly and vaccines and got ready for vaccines, but also how we can organize ourselves around getting people back to work when the time came. And then finally, they really helped us think forward, how we are going to rebuild our city. And we started thinking about, the federal government's going to give us a lot of money to recover, but the federal government's aid will not be enough just alone to help us recover appropriately. And so we started thinking about our own infrastructure investments. And now we are moving forward with issuing our own capital bond program along with the federal government's money that will help sustain, not only help kickstart our recovery, but sustain us for times to come. How do we help families who are vulnerable, who need help with their rents and mortgages and maybe food insecurity? Helped us think through those things. And so we had grant programs to individuals as well as stimulus programs for our nonprofits to help those individuals. How do we strengthen our neighborhoods and our communities so that they're ready to be of assistance to the individual residents, but also create a healthy environment? And how do we accelerate public investment so that we can keep our economy moving and turning strong? But more importantly, how do we cut red tape for small businesses to get started, but also to reinvigorate themselves as they try to grow? So what we really think about here is how do we leverage all of our tools to go to bear, to build forward, to rebuild more equitably, and to make sure that we have ongoing momentum to save our industries, to make sure people have jobs, we're helping our families, and more importantly, we are sustaining our economy, not only for today and tomorrow, but all the way through 2031. And that's the forecast that we're looking for in terms of all the things that we're building toward now. So this has been an amazing era, one in which many of us will never forget. But the reality is we get a chance to reset, build back stronger, and to build back with a more forward thinking, but also to build back more equitably where we bring more people along. And so I look forward to this conversation, and I'm glad to welcome and be a part of this conversation with all the mayors around the world, particularly the mayor from Eggertsson from Reykjavik, one of the great cities I've had the pleasure of visiting.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I'm really glad we're starting with an excellent example of a city that has been able not only to provide all the support for matter of emergency to people and firms, but also from the start having this comprehensive approach to start thinking about what the city should be post-COVID. At the UCD, we work for national governments. And one thing that we have seen is that cities in general, that they have been even more proactive in trying to think about their own strategy for recovery, much more in advance than national governments. So thank you so much for this, for your intervention. Now I would like to ask our second speaker, Dagur Eggertsson, Mayor of Reykjavik, Iceland. He has been mayor since 2007. We met him several times, and I think the last time was in I think it was in San Francisco. I remember already he was telling us during a bilateral meeting his very ambitious housing program. The mayor has developed the Reykjavik City Municipal Plan 2010-2030, which provide a roadmap which not only incorporates a just housing policy, but also includes an ambitious climate policy, as the city intends to become carbon neutral within the next 20 years. A very good example of a win-win strategy. Mayor, we are keen to hear how you have embedded social and environmental sustainability in the recovery roadmap in Reykjavik. The floor is yours, Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, and great to be with you all. And a special greeting to Michael in Denver. One of the places that had direct flights with Reykjavik until the pandemic hit. I've been in my job for some time, not since 2007, but 2014. Just to describe the situation in Reykjavik, the contraction has been on a kind of 100-year scale. It's one of the largest contractions in history economically. We've never seen unemployment rise as fast as now. And what's kind of coining this contraction and this the COVID effect is that it's extremely unequally distributed in the country. So around 10% of the population are without employment, but the rest, the 90%, we have managed to kind of keep up speed in very many things, despite of COVID. So the effect is very unequal. The City Council, on top of the national program that has been going on, both the national government has given out grants, both for companies that were laying off people or keeping them in kind of part-time jobs quite extensively. But the city, with the city companies, Reykjavik Energy and the harbor and more city-owned companies, have put out an investment plan where we had a 10-year horizon, but speeded up investment in the next 3 years, where we were investing in infrastructure. We are pushing for more housing, especially social housing. And the focus of all this was a green focus. So we said that we were building back after COVID with one eye on the economy and the other on climate issues. So it's the plan is called the Green Plan, and under it we have a lot of direct investments, a lot of investment with private partners when it comes to housing and development in the city. We created a lot of jobs for people that have been unemployed and wanted a chance on the working market, so they can join the city or the city's companies or companies in general with support from the national government. But one of the kind of chief focuses on our investment as well is on digitalization of services. Both because we have learned through COVID that we can do a lot of things through digital services, but also for environmental reasons. So the third element of the Green Plan on top of the economic part and the environmental part is the social part. So we're working with all three elements of sustainability, and under the social emphasis, we are saying that it's very important that through all this, nobody's left behind. So because it's a crisis with this big influence on people's lives, but it's so unequally distributed, we have to remember that those that were on the kind of margins of society before are very likely to be pushed even further out. So we have, as in our COVID response, focused very much on marginalized groups, people that are homeless, people that have little means, both for themselves, but also for participation of the children in sports, leisure activities, etc. And a part of the great and big challenges of Reykjavik the recent years has been in social housing, and so we have put emphasis on doing more with the national government and the unions and the students and building groups that are building for the elderly in pushing for new projects that are both meeting social needs and our need for investment and jobs and a better economy. At this moment, we are quite optimistic on many fronts. We have recently got over 50% of the population vaccinated. We are seeing tourists coming back, among others from the United States, where vaccinated tourists are allowed without quarantining. So we think that with a strong investment plan, with eyes on green issues and the climate and the quality of life for the citizen, we can, in very real terms, come out of this stronger and better, with the eye on inequalities that have been very obvious in this crisis. And we are using the city as a strong partner with the national government and the business community in what it takes to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Like the Mayor of Denver, actually, you have been really trying to leverage the fund from the national government to advance your ambitious investment plan, addressing the infrastructure gap. Now it's the moment, but also to address the structural challenge that used to prevail before, and housing was one of them. It seems that many mayors were able during the crisis to do things that they could not do before. So it's, to a certain extent, that was maybe the, if we can say, the advantage of the crisis, at least. The heavily the differentiated impact on people within cities is something that we have been hearing a lot, and we hope that we will be able, at one stage, to get to the data and demonstrate what was the scale of this impact. And of course, very interested by this experience of trying to connect the green agenda with the inclusive agenda. Thank you very much. We're going to turn now to our third speaker, Mayor Lisa Helps from Victoria in Canada. Mayor Helps leads Victoria with a future-oriented lens, prioritizing collaboration and bringing together a diverse range of community leaders to advance her ambitious programs, such as future-focused economic development, climate action, affordable housing, and reconciliation with indigenous people, which is one characteristics of Canada. We are working on this issue in CFE with a number of countries, including Canada. And today, this is something that is even mentioned by national governments in their declaration. We're preparing now for the next ministerial meeting. And now we have received the instruction that, this subject of indigenous people should be more visible in national statement. So Mayor Helps, could you shed light on your action plan for Victoria and how inclusiveness and resilience go hand in hand?
Sure. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. As was just mentioned, reconciliation is an important part of the work we do here in the city of Victoria. And every time I speak publicly, and it's a bit odd in international audiences, but it's important to do anyways, I recognize that the city of Victoria is on the territory of the Lekwungen speaking people. Those are the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations, and these have been their homelands for many years, and we're working on a deep path of reconciliation with them. I'm looking very forward to today's conversation. I'm going to give some highlights, which are very similar actually to some of the things the other two mayors have shared. And then I look forward to the panel where we can dive in a little bit more deeply. So Victoria's recovery plan is broken into 3 parts, and I'll put a link to it in the chat. It's called Victoria 3.0, Recovery, Reinvention, and Resilience. And in the early days of the pandemic, even before we had this recovery plan, we did many of the same things that the other mayors have mentioned: supported businesses, gave tax breaks, gave grants, pulled our community together, did a ton around food and food growing. And then we quickly needed to turn our minds to how do we come out of this more inclusively and more equitably than we went into it. So Victoria 3.0 is broken into 2 parts. There's the recovery part and then the reinvention and resilience. In the recovery part of the plan, which is where we are now, we're continuing to support our small businesses through things like more spaces for patios in public space, really hard work on our business hub to support businesses for their emerging needs, providing information about grants that are available through federal and provincial governments. This year, we actually decreased corporate taxes for all of our businesses, including small businesses, and then also pedestrianizing streets so people can have easier access to businesses. And then in the recovery phase of the plan, and this is really important, we have a section on support Indigenous businesses and youth-led businesses. So each of those groups have their own focus of the plan that our staff and others are working on. So that's where we've been focusing most of our energy on the recovery phase. But importantly, just like the other mayors have stated, we are also looking forward, in our case, out to 2041. And that's where our official community plan, which is the land use plan for the city, goes out to. And so reinvention and resilience is really about creating inclusive, low carbon prosperity. So we're linking, as is the mayor of Reykjavik, economic recovery, inclusive prosperity, and climate action. And we have 2 cornerstone initiatives that we're working on right now that I'm, again, happy to talk more about in the conversation. We're creating to focus on Sustainable Development Goal 14, Life Below Water, an organization here in Victoria called COAST, which is the Center for Ocean Applied Sustainable Technologies. And it's really meant to drive innovation in the ocean and marine sector. For those of you who don't know, Victoria is on an island on the Pacific Ocean, and there's tons of wisdom from the Indigenous communities who've been living and working on the oceans for thousands of years, married together with youth and really good ideas coming out of the University of Victoria, married together with our large marine industry, and married together with small startups. And so COAST is a really exciting initiative to create low carbon prosperity and an inclusive economy. And then the second initiative, which we're really excited about on the north end of our downtown, is to create an arts and innovation district, which really is meant to look at Victoria in the 22nd century. It is an underutilized part of town, old industrial, lots of parking lots and single-story buildings. We know we can do better with that in terms of generating jobs and creating an inclusive economy and creating an innovative approach to affordable housing. So that is the Arts and Innovation District, again, looking ahead to how do we build an urban neighborhood for the 22nd century. I will leave it there. Happy to discuss this with my colleagues when we get to that.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Like the other two mayors, it looks like your approach is quite comprehensive, targeting people, places, and firms at the same time. You mentioned something in your intervention, you know, your efforts to address the question of the impact on the youth generation. This is a topic that we will discuss on Friday with all the mayors. I know that you have been one of the pioneers in this area. So thanks a lot. Now I'm going to turn to our last panelist for this segment, Deputy Mayor Arregi of Bilbao. Since 2019, Deputy Mayor has also been Councillor for Citizen Safety. And we know that Bilbao is a city that has reinvented itself in the most complicated moment of its history, following the crisis of traditional industry, but also the worst flooding suffered 30 years ago. And Bilbao's priority are a well-known example of resilience, a model of urban development based on sustainability and social justice, with a focus on education, on talent, on innovation. So, Deputy Mayor, what action has the city of Bilbao taken to recover from COVID-19? Deputy Mayor, the floor is yours, and you have the 4 minutes like the other mayors.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and be able to have this conversation with all of you. First of all, I would like to send you a warm greeting from our mayor, Juan María Burto, who will have been delighted to be here in this meeting with all of you, but has been unable to because he's recovering from a recent surgery. The pandemic generated by the coronavirus has forced all cities globally to face new challenges, without exception and regardless of borders. This is a situation that we know we cannot face alone as administration. Interinstitutional and public-private collaboration has been and continues to be fundamental in the Basque Country. We have put people at the center of all our actions to recover from the economic and social consequences of this health crisis. I think many of you have said the same before. Our work focuses on the 3 areas most affected by the pandemic: social cohesion, economy and employment, and culture. Last January, we presented the 2021 Bilbao Aurrera Social Emergency Plan, a continuation of the plan we promoted for the first time in May 2020. We have designed 100 extraordinary measures with a budget of 30 million euros. In the social sphere, these measures aim to be a social shield for people who require specific attention and support, people who are the most vulnerable. We act in 4 areas we consider priorities: people with no income, older people in vulnerable situations, people in exclusion, and families with children. Added to these social measures are the measures related to the economy and employment. In this area, we have coordinated extraordinary reductions and bonuses in taxes, payments, and fees for businesses and citizens in general. We will set up employment plans, help pay for small rehabilitation works, make it easier for hotel and catering establishments to occupy public space, and facilitate access to public contracts for companies. We will also like to mention the Bono Bilbao Bonds Program initiative. We have put into circulation and made available vouchers worth more than 6 million euros to encourage local consumption in commerce, the hotel and catering industry, culture, and tourism. We have also invested more than 4 million euros in direct aid to the sector with the same aim. The Bilbao Aurrera plan has a 3rd central concept: culture. Bilbao is a city with a clear calling, an important projection, and a firm cultural commitment. That is why we have designed measures that support and help the local sector while keeping the city alive. In Bilbao, we are working and will continue to work to move forward and overcome the consequences of the pandemic without leaving anyone behind. And the mayor of Reykjavik said the same words: nobody is left behind. That we have to make sure that no one is left behind. I think most ideas, we have the same ideas. I mean, the people who are in the worst situation, the most vulnerable. We talk about youth people, we talk about elder people, we talk about problems with the homeless. I think the ideas, most of our 4 cities are working in the same ideas and working to help these people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Again, another example of a very proactive strategy from a city to deal with the pandemic, both on the social side, but also to provide support to local businesses. And by the way, in our department, we are also working on the question of small and medium-sized enterprises. And we have been, of course, dealing with the issue of how to save, the SMEs across the world. A lot of work has been done in this area. Every day you open your newspaper, and I'm sure you are looking at, what governments are doing to support the SMEs. But, all these specific examples that have been implemented at the local level needs to be more well-known, needs to get more visibility. Please, Deputy Mayor, you can wish a speedy and full recovery to the mayor on behalf of ourselves, on behalf of all members of the panel. Thank you so much. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to engage into a moment of what we call a poll. So I'm going to ask the team in the backstage to launch this poll. So please, you can see the question. So in your opinion, what industries and services will have the hardest time to bounce back from the crisis? You have here multiple choice. So please choose one answer. So I'm asking the colleagues for some helps to show us the result of the poll, or maybe we need to leave a little bit of time. Yes. Well, interesting. Tourism. Yes, 51%, the most affected sector. Culture and creative arts, and then came restaurant, retail sector, and construction. Just a little story about tourism and culture. We are also serving the tourism committee here. For many years, maybe for 60 years, member countries, they had proposed many times to suppress the tourism committee because they thought it was a little sector, not a high priority. And because of COVID, for the first time, we have indication that we have, now to look at these sectors more closely, as well as the one on culture and creative arts. So at the national level, really the pandemic has been able to highlight the importance of this sector, which was not the case before, because of the impact these two sectors had on local economies, and especially on many cities. So I'm not surprised about this result. So we are going now to move to the second part of this webinar. I'm now very pleased to give the floor to Emilia Saez, the Secretary General of UCLG. She will moderate this discussion. Before she will share some thought on the outcome of the UCLG recent meeting of the Executive Bureau, and myself, I had the opportunity to take part in one session. It was last week. I was really stuck and interested to hear about the engagement of mayors to put the notions of care and empathy at the heart of local service provision for an inclusive recovery. So Amelia, thank you so much for being here with us today. Up to you now to run the show.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I am truly delighted to be with you all, and I found the presentations of the mayors really interesting, and I fully identify with what I have experienced in the past year, facilitating this diversity of local and regional governments around the world. What a year it has been, hasn't it? I mean, we don't know what hit us, and my sense is that we still don't. I don't think we truly understand the reach of what has happened to us. I don't think that we understand what is coming, and there is a lot of unknowns. But at the same time, there are also many things that we have more clarity about now, that are easier, things that are easier to explain. And we have always been aware at local and regional level that we were going through a housing crisis, a true emergency in housing, and nobody was paying attention. And we needed COVID to hit us to actually understand that allowing people to have a decent home is not only an act of solidarity and human rights, but actually an act of security. Solidarity has become a beacon of security. We had been saying for a very long time that it was not possible to turn our backs towards the informal. Informality, which is a reality for over 60% of the population around the world, and we are in a very northern approach panel today. Yeah? But if you look at the global south, informality is a very, very important topic. And nobody was paying attention to that, really, not in the way that they should be paying attention. I'm talking G20 level, but we were saying that at the local and regional government level. And that is why, with the notion that our cities and territories will never be the same, that inequalities is no longer acceptable, that solidarity is not only the right thing to do, but actually a transformational factor. But we think that we need to go over to care. We need to change the essentials. We need to put local service provision in a different space in the national and international agendas, and we will need to be more guided by equality, empathy, proximity, and changing the relationships with some of the basics, such as nature and each other, and building communities again. We also need to think, and this is a very important part of the discussion that you have been having, we need to also think that over 40% of the jobs that are coming are jobs that we don't know exist yet. So we need to get ready for that. And the only way that you get ready for that is if you have an inclusive discussion with your citizens. You don't know what is coming, but you know how you want to live. And I think that is the difference, Lamia, that you were pointing out. When you talk to national governments, they don't really know how we want to live. They want to protect the status quo of what we have, to protect the general interest, while these leaders that we have sitting here today, they are busy with the day-to-day, street to street, going to school, going back, going into public transport, being safe there. That's what we are talking about. And that is the shift that we see in care. With the Sustainable Development Goals, and I'm delighted that the Mayor of Victoria has them with her there in your back. Exactly, there they are. The Sustainable Development Goals, the perfect framework to do this, a new social contract where we address racism, where we address some of the things that are your true concerns. So what I want to focus about now, and I have shared some of the links where local and regional governments around the world have been discussing everything that they have changed. So have a look at that, because they really complement what you have been saying. I want to focus now, and you have received some questions in advance, on what concerns you. What is next? You have done extraordinary things, but can you hold to that? Can you actually continue with tax cuts? Can you actually continue protecting the local service provision? Where does that money come from? What sectors are you concerned about? Those are the questions that are here in play. And what I am going to do is I want to start with the women, because I think a feminist approach is really the future, both by men and by women. Feminism is not about women alone, but I want to start with you. So let me go into the reverse mode and start with Amaia and check with you. I am sure you have quite good clarity about which industries or which spaces are going to be most hit. What I am wondering is, from all the measures that you have put in place, how much is that funding that comes from Bilbao, and how much is it funding that you are dependent on other spheres of government from? What concerns you, Amaia? And please, let us make this interactive. And I have here 2 tools. Look at me. This one is, you are taking too long. This one is, it's great, and thank you very much. So look at me when you see me waving this. You need to finish. Amaia, how are you paying for this? How are we going to be paying for this? What is your main concern now?
Our main concern is to don't leave anyone behind, neither persons or groups, the vulnerable groups, nor businesses, neither businesses. So we are working with them, and we're working with those that they were mostly affected by the pandemic. And in our case was commerce, local commerce, where the restaurant and hotel industries, was tourism, and was culture. I mean, they were all in the pool. Most of them were in the pool. So we made a big effort with some remnants we had, with some money we had in the city council, and we were working hard with them. We are optimistic. I think we have to be optimistic too. And we are collaborating with the regional, with the province government, and also with the Basque government. So, and we are trying to work together, all the political parties. I think that's a very important also in our city. In those plans we put, we started with the pandemic, we were able to get a big agreement with all the political parties in the city council. So I think that's great. And we had this committee to see and monitorize what we are doing and see if we're going in the right way or we have to change. I mean, if we see some things are not working as well as we want, we can, and we are able to change them, okay? So, but we are optimistic, and we think we have an important tradition in creating companies, enterprises here in Bilbao and in the Basque Country. So we think, and we have an example in 2020, in pandemic times, 112 enterprises were created here in Bilbao with the city council's aid. So we have to be optimistic, we have to keep helping them, and we have to keep collaborating, all the different administrations and all the different political parties. We have to get over this pandemic, all of us together.
Yeah, it's co-governance and co-creation. I think it's about putting our heads together. Indeed, there is no one single actor that can do this alone. You're absolutely right. And one very important thing is, however, the market will remain extremely relevant, but actually there is a vulnerability that we need to cover as public sector that goes beyond the interest of the market, and that will be a change in the discussion. I am wondering, Lisa, whether in Victoria you have also experienced that at first sight, you have these smaller enterprises, you know, the neighborhood shops, etc., that are hit very hard when you close down because they live day by day, week by week. But then my sense is in a city like Barcelona that those recover pretty fast. And they are the big ones, the big setups, you know, that have many restaurants around the city. they are not making enough money to keep them all open, while my neighborhood is still thriving. Is that something that you sense there? And where are your concerns about future financing, Lisa?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really interesting question. It's true, actually. There was just a newspaper article yesterday that White Spot restaurant, which is part of a big chain, it's actually Canada's oldest restaurant chain. They've closed a location in Victoria because of the pandemic, but my neighborhood pub has never been busier, right? And so I think there has been, both at our city level and certainly our Chamber of Commerce and our Regional Economic Development Association, which I can talk more about at some point, because that co-governance and collaboration is key, has been really, really focused on doubling down on local, shopping local, growing local, eating local, and that has made a big difference. Having said that, those are good jobs, but I think one thing that you said that's really important is we don't know what the jobs of the future look like. And if we've seen anything during COVID, it's how quickly those shifts can happen, right? Our city council meetings, for example, are completely online. You know, people can give their input through video, all of these things that we imagined would take a long time. And so one of the things that we're working on here at a regional level with our colleges and universities is upskilling and micro-credentialing, particularly for low-wage, vulnerable workers, Indigenous people, workers of color, to get them prepared with the skills, the digital skills that we don't know what the jobs will be, I think, but we know what the skills are. And so for me, that's a really important part of our work is anticipating what the skills for those unknown jobs are, and making sure that the people who have been hardest hit can be prepared for those jobs.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And let us try to see whether you can react also to each other in another round. But you have, the Mayor of Denver has some specific questions here in the Q&A chat. And they are asking how you are supporting innovation and how does Denver support social and affordable housing? I think both questions are too many. Maybe you pick one of them. I will go for innovation if you agree. How are you doing that, Mayor? And what would be your main concern as we work towards the future? One question that I would like you all to think about is some of these measures, some innovative measures that you put in place, you know, around food, around access to technology that were temporary. Are we able to make them permanent? In particular, around housing, is that the case or not? Mayor, the floor is yours.
You know, before we even entered the pandemic, Denver had a housing crunch challenge, and since 2013, while I was mayor, we have been focused on expanding opportunities and the inventory of affordable housing in our city. We now are in the middle of a 10-year, $300 million commitment of building more affordable housing. But Denver can't do it by itself. $300 million over 10 years really is like giving a well a tic-tac in terms of the size and scope of the need that we have in our city. But it's also meant to inspire and hopefully encourage the private sector to do more. And so we've had to implement some new policies and initiatives in the city of Denver to receive more affordable housing units as we have more multi-housing units being built in the city. The state legislature is enacting new laws to help us do the same. But affordable housing has to be a priority. We are building, we can't build fast enough to try to meet that need. Our cost of construction is going up and it's beginning to impact and squeeze the affordable housing market a little more. So we are greatly concerned about it. Innovation has to be woven in everything that we do, even building affordable housing. Today, you can actually build affordable housing much quicker, much less expensively by partnering with companies that, quite frankly, just bring the unit to the site and assemble it like it's a jigsaw puzzle or like a Lego set. And it's just as quality construction as if they built it from ground up on site. So we're looking at those sort of opportunities going forward. But I got to tell you, when you talk about innovation, and every mayor here knows this, leadership starts with us always looking forward. What's coming down the pipe? You know, here in the U.S., we're working to build through Congress, but we have it here. But we're thinking about how do we build infrastructure for electric vehicles, right? If we want to improve our climate, if we want to really aid in the proliferation and the utility of electric vehicles? Well, there's got to be infrastructure for that. When you're parking, how can I charge at a meter for my car? And if I'm in the middle of downtown, and how do we make sure there's electric charging stations intermittently throughout the city? Policies, zoning policies, building policies, all those things are going to be critical. So we got to continue to be thinking forward and beyond just the moment that we're sitting in.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I think that looking forward is indeed extremely important. As I go now to the Mayor of Reykjavik, I want you all to think for a quick second round. I would like you to reflect on the comeback of culture. Culture needs to play a different role in our societies, right? And it's a sector that is suffering a lot. I voted, I didn't know I couldn't, and I voted a culture because it takes a long time to get creativity moving, and it takes a lot of investment. A restaurant may, once that you open up the restrictions, they can react faster, but culture is a different thing. So I want you all to think about the role that culture is playing in your cities and how you are engaging the youth in this. But I want to now go to the mayor of Reykjavik. Your situation is slightly different because you are the largest city in your country, the most populated city. You are the capital city, so you attract the industry. You attract a lot of the big business. Mayor, how is that relationship going to look like with the big businesses and industry? Is that going to change, you think? Is the conversation changing? Do you feel that the public sector, who is now really back, because we all sense now how important public is, you have been keeping us alive and protected to a large extent. Is that relationship, that dialogue changing? Are you able to ask for a different type of product or relationship, you feel?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that maybe in the discussion, we will see a new equilibrium, kind of a mutual respect, where kind of the public sector is not bad or kind of in the heavens, but very important. And I think that in COVID and in tackling the pandemic, you've both seen internationally a breakdown of public services and breakdown of coordination that have led to worse outcomes than where you have had good, solid public infrastructure and a coherent strategy. When we take kind of the big picture of the city economics of Reykjavik, I think we can learn a lot from the last, not just year, but 10, 15 years. We had the kind of the breakdown of the banking sector in 2008 that taught us a lesson. One of the kind of strong pillars coming out of that was tourism, which grew enormously. And I think we feel that we need to take care that we have a lot of strong pillars. So we are actually looking to the cultural sector not as a problem, but as an opportunity, and the creative industries, where one of actually the few places in the world that kept filming for Netflix and other outlets were here in Reykjavik, where we have a new filming and film center where the industry comes together, and we are looking at the knowledge-based industries to keep growing in cooperation with the universities. And so I think that we will have a multi-sectoral approach in our kind of industrial strategy, if you like, but not to forget the kind of value of having a good, solid public sector, a good health system, and good infrastructure there as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have put it really well. If you have a weak public sector, then everything else is probably going to be weak as well, and none of the policies are going to work. And also the environment for the private sector to thrive becomes also very difficult. So I agree very much. And the questions in the chat, my colleagues from OECD are saying, are very interested in private public collaborations that might be renewed now within this COVID pandemic. In relation to culture, I think if anything, culture, we say it in our decalogue for the post-COVID pandemic in United Cities and local governments, is the antidote to some of the worst effects of this crisis. I don't know what any of us would have done if we wouldn't have been able to still have music or visit museums from home when we were in the lockdowns. But it's also a very important space to reconnect with ourselves and with mental health. Health is something that we haven't talked about a lot, and I think that local service provision has a lot to do with health beyond the healthcare system. So please do feel free for this final round. We still have a short 20 minutes, maybe 15, a little bit longer, to reflect on that. Is there anything that you would like to comment on culture, questions to each other, and the private public sector collaborations? Who wants to start? I don't want to choose. Let me show your hand. Good, I see you. Bilbao, Amaia, adelante.
Gracias, thank you. I think collaboration here is also very necessary with the private, between public and private agents. I think it's necessary. We worked a lot with the cultural and creative industries. We started last summer. We had some cultural projects in the city. We've been saying that culture is safe. All the projects have been going on with less public, but we try to have the city on, and at the same time to help and aid these industries that they have been really having a very bad situation. So we worked with them, and we opened the theaters, we opened the music, always everyone had to be seated, okay? But we think it has been a way to keep going and also to help mental health. I mean, and to do things and to have the city alive with the restrictions we have, and not forgetting that we still have the pandemic and the coronavirus, but going on and trying to help and saying that culture is safe if we practice and we have the measures to do it.
Thank you very much. I mean, you know, I have been working with mayors and local elected officials for 20 years. And in those 20 years, I heard very little about mental health. In this last year, we have come to realize that our cities, our streets, our neighbors are so important to our mental health. And the way that we deal with public space is also extremely important. So a very good point there, Amaia, on culture and the role that it has played. But also, I think to look further, to see what is coming next, as the mayor of Denver was saying. Without culture, it's difficult to imagine what comes next. There is a very good question in the chat, and I don't know whether any of you will want to pick on that. Is the Sustainable Development Goals, the local 2030 agenda, too far away? Is it too much of a long term for you mayors that need to be re-elected every couple of years and that need to fight for that re-elections? I leave it there, and whoever wants to pick it up, please do. Who would like to go next? Victoria, anything that you would like to share with us? Lisa, Mayor?
Sure. Yeah, I had my hand up, but I see Michael also has his hand up. Yeah, I'll pick up on a number of things. Yeah, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, for me, they're not too far away. If people don't want to reelect me for looking out 4 decades or 5 decades, then that's, you know, essentially their loss. Although I'm not running again in 2022, so that's fine. But no, we need to have these long-term goals and then show our residents how each day we're working hard to meet those. I just want to pick up on a couple of things, and I actually have a question that I'd like to pose to my colleagues because it's something that we're struggling with here. You asked earlier, are the innovations during the pandemic going to continue? I think the good ones absolutely will. For example, with respect to housing, over the past year, we have housed 600 people who have been living on the street, some of them from the pandemic, some pre-pandemic. 600 people have moved inside over the past year, and I can tell you for sure that we are not stopping. So that will continue, and that's a very strong partnership with the provincial government. In terms of arts and culture, that's one of the things that we continue to invest in during the pandemic. So we've talked about our support for businesses and residents, but we have given out everyday creativity grants. We've been funding our arts organizations. We've got an artist in residence, a poet in residence, a youth poet in residence, an Indigenous artist in residence, and they've all been funded and working hard. So, and that really, I think, has kept people sane, quite frankly, or helped with mental health. One of the questions that I have, this is again, we struggle with this every day, is we're building back, or we're building forward better, we're looking to the future, and we struggle here sometimes. I feel sometimes like we're dragging some of our residents into the future with us. There's huge resistance to things like taking away road space from cars to turn it to people for biking and walking, particularly biking. When we propose to build affordable housing in some neighborhoods, people don't want people camping in parks, but they also don't want them living in a house in their neighborhood. So my question to my colleagues is, what's your strategy for, first of all, are you experiencing these things as well? And what's your strategy for saying, no, but look, we're talking about 10 years or 20 years down the road. It's, you know, there are changes, but they're necessary. So I'll leave it there. Thank you. And I'm glad I didn't get the sign to stop talking.
No, you guys are rocking, basically. You're doing very well. And sorry, Michael, I hadn't seen your blue hand up. I didn't have that part of the application open. Please do feel free to come in and maybe address some of the questions that Lisa was posing.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I think I want to get with Lisa and have a conversation, and maybe even, I'm going to be visiting Canada later this year, Lisa. So I think I'll try to stop in to see you, because what I'm learning, obviously, is we're dealing with a lot of common issues. We have a major homeless challenge here. So let me just quickly address 3 things. One is, yes, we had to move quickly to address our homeless people who are unsheltered in our city during the pandemic as well. We opened up in a matter of a couple of days, literally, shelters to take care of them and to make sure there was, you know, proper distancing. Because what we saw was when we put in distancing requirements in the city of Denver, we also squeezed our shelters. They couldn't take as many people. Now their volunteers went home because they were fearful, of course, of contracting the virus. So we had to move in, and we spent in excess of $40 million just to address the challenges of people experiencing homelessness in our city. So you have to keep doing it. And I agree with Lisa. Those measures will continue beyond our recovery. We have to, because we got to take care of folks. Safe outdoor sites is one of the things that we've tried, Lisa, and that is to set up sanctioned outdoor encampments and locations that are well, that set up boundaries. They are well managed, sanitation's there, and they're only allowed for a certain number of people there, and they're given tents, and they help connect them to services while they're there. That has gone really well in the city of Denver. If I can transition very quickly to the culture and arts real quick, you know what, that industry, those industries were hit devastatingly hard in the teeth, if you will, during the pandemic. Obviously, everything shut down, theaters, ballets, orchestras, everything. We forget that the arts are the only really universal language that brings people together as well. And though we were very limited during the pandemic, as we recover, in order to build back our energy and cohesion and really the spirit of the people who are, you know, dealing with mental health of being locked down for over a year, we're really using the arts to bring people back. And so I've met with organizations, and we are going to be doing concerts in parks. We're going to be doing galleries, and the goal was to get these arts and cultural organizations moving again, because it's going to bring people back and give people a destination. So I'm excited to see a lot of live music that are going to be taking place in Denver, just in some of our plazas and closed down streets. It's going to be pretty exciting.
Thank you.
And
it gives me a lot of
artists,
hope to listen to you, actually. Mayor, you were saying something still. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and it also gives ability for us to pay our local artists who, again, took it on the teeth and had nowhere else to turn during the pandemic. So I'm excited about that as well.
Absolutely, but they also need to help us deal with the losses that we have gone through the transformation, yes, also that we will need to face. Mayor of Reykjavik, for this last round, any reflections? And remember the question that Lisa also posted to you.
Yes, I think that we face many of the same challenges, and I think that every mayor that really focuses on his or her task will be dealing with green issues and pushing the green agenda, and will meet some opposition, as have been mentioned here, when it comes to taking space for biking or walking. But I actually see last year as a story also of that exactly that green infrastructure that were in place catered to all those people that couldn't go to the gym or couldn't use kind of the facilities indoor that they were used to. So all pavements and public areas were packed with people trying to activate themselves, etc. And I think that we learned a lot from last year. And one thing we learned in Reykjavik, we knew that we loved those swimming pools, but that we would miss them so much, I don't think we believe that still. So a lot of the cherished things are even more cherished. And that's not because it's nice, warm, and we have water. It's about meeting other people and connecting. And although I love technique, I look so much forward to meet you in Paris next time.
I think you have summarized the feeling that we are all experiencing. We need to communicate, and that can not only happen with technology, but the way that you have described how the citizens of Reykjavik have been missing the swimming pools is also a part of redefining our essentials. This is what we are saying in our care agenda. It's really finding the proximity, who takes care of us, what are those essential jobs that are facilitating the public service provision. How do we redefine some of the private sector offers to actually better answer the needs of our communities? So do you have any urgency or emergency, a concept that you say you have forgotten here? Because I don't want to open up very difficult concepts now, as we only have 5 short minutes to go. Any word that you would like to share among yourselves, except for seeing each other very, very soon again? This is your opportunity.
I have just one. I think that it's very interesting to follow the international debate of how to respond and what to do next. And I want to both thank the OECD and other international analysts of not suggesting, as 10 years ago, to save ourselves out of the crisis or kind of go for austerity as a way out of it. I think that we have to grow out of this crisis in all aspects of the word grow as a community, grow in interaction with other people, but also grow economically and in a green direction. So we are kind of investing for the future, making sure that we leave cities and countries and whole the whole world better off for our children. I think that it's so important now, when kind of the harsh reality of post-COVID will meet us, that we don't go to the old toolbox.
The old concept of growth.
Yes.
I would say I would add one thing to your growth list, and that is the growth of equality. If we make that one grow, I think we come very, very far. Amaia, una palabra te queda, one word. Counselor.
Solo una, just one. I think I agree with that. We have to face the same challenges: the green agenda, the climate agenda. People. I think the coronavirus has made that we change our perception of the city. We want more places to walk, to be with other people. And yeah, we made some changes for pedestrians and for cycling too, as the mayor said before. People were asking for it. Not everyone is happy with it, and we also changed the velocidad, the speed of the city.
Speed limit, yes, the 30 kilometer speed limit.
So that made also that we have less cars in the city, and we're trying to make a nicest, more comfortable city for the future for our people, so we can enjoy the city a lot more. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Lisa, back to you. Some thoughts. You were saying the good ideas will stay. I hope that we can pay for them. And I am very sorry to hear that you are not going to run again. This is a typically female approach to politics. But you need to find another way to influence your local and global reality. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, 8 years at the velocity and pace at which I work is enough. So that will be 8 years. I think I want to pick up on something you said earlier in the conversation, that often what makes the headlines are national investments, national plans. I think that we should not, and you know this and we all know this, should not underestimate the importance of cities to recovery, to the green agenda, to building resilience. So we need to just stay focused on the power of cities, and not only city halls, but the power of our citizens and residents and businesses. So I think this is the century of cities without question. And I think that that's going to be really important, not only to watch, but also to fund and nurture for the decades to come.
Indeed, because cities are not only the buildings of the government, cities are living beings that are made up of all of our communities, the streets, the smells, the people that we play with, the people that we say hello to every morning. And I think that is the mistake that has been made also with the urban era. The urban era has been too often understood as a big cities agenda, while it should be understood as a system of cities. So you get to close this round, Mayor Michael. Some additional thoughts before I give back the floor to Lamia?
Yeah, the only thing I will share is one of the things we're focused on here, with all of the challenges that we've had, obviously pre-pandemic, during pandemic, here in the United States, it really exposed a lot of the class separation or inequities in class and race and incomes or economics. And as we build forward and we build more equitably, we use those terms very intentionally. And so, I recognize, depending from country to country, things are different. But here in the U.S., our history is long, deep, and everybody knows it, based on race. And it illuminated a great deal during the pandemic, and it really played in our psyche. And we had a reckoning with race, with the George Floyd situation that is globally known as well. So the reality is that we get a chance to fix some of those challenges, really address them boldly and directly. But as we build back with the forward thinking and the momentum we have, hopefully we do it more equitably and we bring more folks along, and we recognize that we can deal with all of this equitably with great economics and good common sense and inclusion.
Thank you very much. You all rock. Thank you for protecting us all of this time, for keeping the water running, for taking our waste away from the streets. Is the true luxury to be able to work from home like some of us have done, but also for finding solutions and new service provision for those that could not stay home and protecting them. We have in the chat some interesting proposals to foster community development centers. There are questions about where do we find trends or incentives to foster domestic investment. I think that some of the innovative approaches that you have put forward can be really an inspiration for new public-private partnerships, and that kind of incentive could actually work, the innovation itself. But I also think, and it's not part of this panel, but it needs to be debated, we will need to change the picture of the fiscal picture of the nations, and the local level will need to have a bigger share. But I will stop here. That's the job of Lamia, to convince all of those national governments. You can count on me to continue advocating on that. Lamia, it has been a pleasure and a privilege to facilitate mayors from around the world. Once again, back to you.
Thank you so much, Emilia. You mentioned, let me check if yes, I demute already. You said that the mayors, they rock, but you also rock. So thank you so much for this very lively moderation. Yes, of course, we have this ongoing work. Actually, Emilia has been pushing us for many years to work on this question of subnational finance, allocation of responsibility across levels of governments. And we have done something very interesting. We have set up the OECD UCLG Observatory on Subnational Finance and Investment, where actually we have now data from more than 100 countries around the world. So I invite you to have a look at that. To conclude first, before concluding first, we have another poll, and I would like to ask the colleague to launch the poll. This is the second one. So the question is the following: historically, during recession, some industries still do reasonably well or even thrive due to changing patterns of consumption and behavior. In your opinion, what sector will benefit the most from this crisis? So we have, again, the same sectors, but now, according to you, according to your opinion, which one are going to rebound and benefit from the after COVID? So we invite, of course, all participants to vote. And we are waiting for the answers. I'm not sure we're going to have big surprise. For the moment, we have only 50% of participants who did the poll. We are going to wait a couple of seconds, additional seconds, waiting for Sena to show us the results. Sena? Yes. Well, this is not what I thought, but it's very interesting. I don't know. I'd like to know from the mayors, is this what you had in mind in terms of the outcome, Mayor of Denver? What do you think?
It is. It's exactly what I thought would happen. I think technology is going to, people realize while sitting at home, we can do a lot of things through technology. So I expect it to expand and to get even more innovative.
And other mayors? Lisa helps?
Yeah, it's not a surprise to me to see that big red line on technology. But as I said earlier, what's going to be most important is to make sure that everybody has equitable access to the technology and the skills needed to get those jobs in those new sectors.
Additional comments from the mayor of Reykjavik?
I think it will maybe be more equally distributed, and I think the wish to travel is still there. I think the wish to enjoy culture and enrich your life with that is still there. We just in the midst of it somehow. So I think that just later this year and even late this summer, a lot of things that we have almost forgotten now will be back to normal, I think, at least. And with those words, I welcome you to Reykjavik.
Oh, yes, we'll be happy to come. Bilbao, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, it hasn't been a surprise for me either. And I agree that the technology is very important. I think, but we have to work so we get equality in technology also, and everyone is able to get and have the same opportunities in technology. I think that's a big effort we have to do.
Thank you so much. We're now at the end of this first roundtable. I think it has been a terrific discussion. I would like to thank Emilia, all the mayors, all the speakers, and of course, all the participants who joined us today. Let's keep the conversation going through our social media and via our website. I would like to again remember you to engage with us on Twitter using the handles that I think Senna is going to display. Yes, she did here. Senna, can you please show the hashtag and the other and the website, our website? If you are a city with an initiative relating to inclusive growth that you'd like to showcase, please get in touch with us, even if you did not participate today. Don't hesitate to contact our secretariat so that we can give visibility to what you're doing. Also, as a reminder to this webinar, it has been recorded and will be made available on the Champion Mayors platform in the next few days. And please feel free to share it with your colleagues and your network. And last but not least, do join us for the other webinars during the Champion Mayors Week. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 26th, we will explore strategies to rethink public space and reshape urban landscapes in ways that generate benefits for everyone. We will have the mayors of Bratislava, of Slovakia, Haifa in Israel, Oakland, and San Jose from United States. And on Thursday, 27, we will examine the variety of strategies cities are adopting to achieve an inclusive economic recovery, environmental sustainability, and energy efficiency. And we will have this conversation with the mayor of Braga from Portugal, the mayor of Freetown from Sierra Leone, the mayor of Glasgow from United Kingdom, and the mayor of Mannheim in Germany. So please use the links in the chat to register to this two session. We look forward to your participation. And again, thank you so much. And you know what? We are exactly on time. So we had maybe one of the most wonderful panel, Emilia, together today. A very lively discussion. Everybody stick on time. Thank you for joining us. Here, the last slide that is on the screen show you the pictures of all the 60 mayors that form the coalition of the Champion Mayors for Inclusive Growth. They will meet on Friday. I mentioned that already. And at that moment, there will be an outcome documents that will be, of course, disseminated to everybody. Thank you so much. Let's keep the momentum. And let's make sure that we give more visibility to the good work that all these mayors are doing to deal with the pandemic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thanks, everyone.